And bam, we are live. What's up, guys? Today I'm pretty excited. We're going to be talking about follow up. So my name is Brandon Lecoq. I'm out of Colorado Springs, Colorado. And I have Farron Pereira with us today out of the DFW, representing the Texas market. He's going to be my kind of co-host. He's going to let us know when you guys have questions. I want to make sure that first you guys go and like and subscribe the channel. Make sure that you're posting your questions in the live chat so we can see what you guys are asking. I have a little agenda that I'm going to go over, but I am all for stopping and answering those questions. Make sure that you guys are being taken care of. Without further ado, let's get started. As I mentioned, we're going to be talking about the overview of the follow-up. So I'm going to call it the Lecoq method to follow up, right? And reason why I say that, because that's how I'm doing things. There's some pieces of this that I haven't implemented completely yet, but I plan on doing that in the future. So I can kind of streamline a lot of my follow-up. I can make sure that I'm personalizing things and giving, my clients that, the best service possible post closing, right? Because a lot of times agents, they get excited, they get all the way to the closing table. It's been chaos, or maybe it hasn't, and then they forget, right? They just leave them hanging, like, oh, they're a past client. I don't have to take care of them. So there's a few different ways to follow up, right? There's no right way. There's only one bad way, and that's not following up, right? So you want to make sure that when you are doing your follow-up, you're engaging your clients, you're talking with people, you want to stay true to yourself, your brand, and to be genuine. I'm sorry, I have a little bit of a throat issue right now, so my voice is a little deeper. Anyways, so the idea behind the follow-ups, the key part, right? The first step is just having a plan of action in place, right? You want to make sure that you're setting reminders and to do those things, right? So before we get into the actual follow-up topics today, we want to talk about laying the foundation of your mindset and strategy when you're getting into this. So the whole idea in follow-up, right? The goal is to build a relationship, right? You're not, hopefully you're not transactional. You're like, all right, on to the next one. You're building true relationships over time, and that you're really engaging and building your sphere of influence, right? Because that, in my opinion, is the most fruitful group that you can lean into to create and generate more business, right? At the end of the day. And please stop me, guys, if you have any questions. Let me see you in the private chat. Make sure that I have that getting ready. So, and when you're doing that, right, this leads to repeat business. You're going to get more referrals. The past clients, they already know, like, and trust you, right? That's the key. You heard that a lot with a lot of different people, giving you advice, right? The idea is to get someone that knows, likes, and trusts you for their business. So you want to make sure you're shifting your perspective. You're moving away from the transactional thinking to relationship building. So that's the first step in that foundation, is setting your expectations of how you're treating your future, your past, present, and future clients, right? Obviously, it's easier said than done. There's a lot of shiny objects, I'd say. There's a lot of plans out there. There's a lot of different things out there. So I would advise to really lean into the things that you're good at, or lean into the things that have an impact. If you prefer going and shaking hands, then do that with your past clients. Knock on the door, say hi, like, hey, just wanted to let you know I'm thinking about you. Whatever the case may be, you want to lean into that. It goes back to you being genuine about yourself and your brand, right? So another part of what people tend to forget is they get a lead and they start talking with the lead. The first thing is like, oh, how many bedroom, how many bathroom, where areas you're going to look at, right? What school district, what are you doing? They get into that nitty gritty before establishing a relationship. So you want to make sure that you understand your client's needs, and for effective follow-up and deeper engagement, you have to ask good questions, right? So when you have meaningful conversations, if you ask a non-open-ended question, they're going to like, yes, no. You're not going to get much out of that, right? So the goal is to ask open-ended questions. And you want to do that in different formats. And we'll get into those different formats as well. So the goal there is, for example, I got a few examples here I want to share with you. So first one is, what are your biggest hopes and dreams for your future home? So you can start to get their excitement. You can see what drives them. So you can start and make sure, you're taking notes when you listen. What does your ideal weekend look like in a new home, in a new neighborhood, right? What are your non-negotiables in a home? What are you willing to be flexible with? And obviously, when you're dealing with spouses, it becomes a little bit more. All right, you focus on one person, you focus on the next, and you try to bring them together to get on the same page. What concerns, anxieties do you have about the real estate process? Because it's a very elaborate process, and I don't think people really give it enough credit of how much goes on, right? And that's our jobs, right, to do that in an effective manner. And then if you could wave a magic wand, right, and your dream home would appear, what would that be? Right. So these are some good open-ended questions that get people excited. You're going to get a lot of information because one, people like to talk, right? So they like to talk about themselves. And that's the key. You want them to talk about themselves. Um, excuse me. So the other thing is that when you're listening, you have to actually listen and then document what you're listening to, right? So if you're just like listening and goes in one ear out the other, and or you're listening, but then you go back, you're like, oh crap, I don't remember what they said. What was their daughter's name again? Dang, I wish I remember. Now you feel bad asking, and a lot of times I've done this before. I've gone a whole transaction without asking what their child's name was again because I felt bad not remembering. And I was able to get it in a different way, just like beating around the bush. But like I shouldn't have to do that, right? And it doesn't really give me any justice to have to. I'm just going to ask again. You're like, hey, I'm so sorry, I forgot. But if you document, right, you can really get more information, and then they forget about a lot of that. And when you go back, you're like, hey, how's so and so doing? They're like, oh wow, they remember my kids' names and my kids' birthday or favorite sport or whatnot. So document early and often, right? And I think that goes for anything in real estate, right? Um, and then when we're looking at documentation, something that I really like to lean into is technology, right? So, um, we have, all kinds. You can use your CRM, whatever your brokerage is, whatever they give you or provide you, or whatever you pay for, whatever you decide to use, that keyword use, that's the best place to put your information. So you could do it notes on your phone if you're out and about. I know with like for us at Epic, we have Lofty. We can have the app. We're going to put notes in the app. Me personally, I like to have I'm an Apple user. Sorry, Android users, but I like to use the native apps. So notes and then reminders are great for me and making my business more efficient, helping because I have to have it written down, and obviously Google Calendar, right? And then one thing that I think is really cool and people forget about is Google Forms. So if you think about the amount of conversations you have asking the same information over and over and over and over again, if you're doing anything twice, have a solution or an automation or document that, right? In my opinion, right? And that looks like Google Forms. So let me see if I can pull up an example of my personal Google Forms that I use for my initial engagement with my clients. In that, bear with me. Let's see here. Farron, do you have something in particular that you utilize as far as when you take notes, or like do you have a process set to where when you meet a client, and how do you take notes and things like that?
Usually, the first one I try to leave the transaction out of it on the first meeting itself. Like you said, for example, if it's like a listing presentation, I
Right,
try to leave all my, like for that discovery meeting, initial one, I leave all my notes, all the stats, all the market data, etc. out. For
right,
me, my ideal, unless they want it, unless I get the feeling that okay, this is something they just want it, the numbers, quick, straight, clear cut transaction only. I may approach it that way, but usually my preferred method of getting to know, the seller and the house is to go in with nothing, absolutely nothing. And my only objective is to get to know them and what they are after, like
Yeah.
what's their end state look like.
Right.
And then once I get an understanding of it, then I will work on a plan backwards and then re-engage with them after that. But
Gotcha.
my goal is to just leave them feeling like I understood what they want and that I'm the best person for the job.
Gotcha. Yeah. I like that. I like the idea of going in, and because if you got paper, if you got things around you, you're going to get distracted, and your focus should be on them 100%. Personally, I've got ADHD like a mofo, so I will forget like immediately, and I'm like, "Oh crap, what did they just tell me?" So personally, and this is a good example of like, hey, this solution or potential solution doesn't work for everybody. Like I'm very systematic. I want a solution in place that I can reference so I don't forget things. But other people work very differently. So if this works for you, do that. If you want to go in and just get to know them first, do that. And I think that's a great way to like get to know your client as well. But I like to, you know, so initially, I'll just take it from the top. So if I get a lead, a cold lead, right? So they have no idea who I am. I have no idea who they are. That initial phone conversation or conversation in person, or ideally not via email, right? Initially, is really 100%. I agree with you. Is about them. Like, hey, what's going on? Why are you moving? What is their purpose, their goals, their intent? Right. And then what I do is I say, hey, I was a great conversation. I'm going to follow up. Excuse me. I'm going to follow up with you. I'm going to send you my questionnaire guide because this helps me get to know you. It helps me document some of the things so I don't have to repeat myself. And then that way they're like, oh, okay, cool. And then they can kind of go through and see that. And I'm going to show you guys what I'm referencing here. So this is my buyer's questionnaire guide. This is what I use to ask questions, right? For buyers. And I have something for the sellers. Basically at each step, like I have one before I get to know them, or the initial steps. Then, I have one for pre-closing, meaning like, hey, these are your utility stuff. Like, so I have one for the sellers as well. But you just see like it's just basic information, phone number, when's your birthday, preferred contact information. There's a lot of details here that I like to know, and I can go back and reference, right? You're able to I think utilize this to your advantage because a lot of people will forget. They'll fill it out, they forget, and then you go and remind them of things that they obviously told you, but it gives you not the appearance because you are doing your job and you're taking care of them. Like make sure they're like, yeah, this person is on top of it. They understand, they remember because it's so easy to forget, right? So for me, this is what I utilize. So you can see some of the questions I have in here, and then I have because I deal with a lot of military. I have a so this is like the beverage, like food stuff. So, but I have a family and then a military service one as well. And honestly, I don't mind sharing this. If anybody wants this, comment in the YouTube channel, like, hey, I would love to get a, whatever the resource is, because we got a few of them today. And just let me know. But that's the example of what I utilize for Google Forms, right? And what I do is also I put the seller's questionnaire in there. Let me see. Let me go back and show you just the seller's one. And share it. So, no, wrong one. Anyways, I have one for the sellers. I'm not going to share it right now because I can't pull it up for some reason. And then the other one I have is for agent referrals. I think agent referrals go unnoticed. So, Farron, I just sent you a referral in Texas. You're going to be getting one of these, right? I just finalized I had one, but I wanted to update it. So, and I'll show you guys what that looks like actually, because this one's, I think, is pretty important that you take care of your referral agents because you're also building relationships with them, right? So they give you a referral, like, and then you guys don't talk ever again. Like I believe in really building that relationship. So I have someone to go to in a specific city or state, and I build relationships all over the country. And that's why I can interview agents for clients and say, hey, I know this person. Like, we've built a relationship. But here's kind of what this looks like. It gives the information of that agent, because honestly, I love to give back to the agents as well. Send them gifts in the mail, or just say, hey, thank you. I appreciate the referral. Brokerage information, so you can fill out referral form, clients information, social media, because like, hey, go like my stuff, I'll go like your stuff. Let's build together, right? And then the actual referral form, they can go and fill out if they want to do that, right? So just a little caveat on that piece, right? All right, before I move on to the next section is automation, staying top of mind. Farron, do we have any? I don't see any questions in the comments so far.
Yeah, no questions so far.
Do you have anything you want to touch on before we move?
Nope, everything was pretty straightforward, and I do like the agent questionnaire. That's a instead of just when we go to refer agents to clients, instead of just being like, hey, I just found a guy, you post on a Facebook group, and then the first guy to message you, instead of you passing them on, it's like this actually forces you to take the extra step of getting to know them a little bit beyond surface level. It's
Yep.
like, hey, I have an agent with I just have a license in such and such city. That's like
Yeah.
usually what you would get, the first person to message you. But instead, this one just forces you to look just beneath the surface as well.
And you could potentially match personalities. So if someone goes on here and they're
Mhm.
like, hey, they love playing ice hockey, and then you find out that their clients love ice hockey, you're like, okay, that's cool. I'm going to mention that. Like, hey, so and so is a great agent. Hey, by the way, he also loves ice hockey, so give him crap about his team. You know what I mean? Or something like that, just to build that
Mhm.
additional layer of knowing someone, right? All right,
Definitely.
so let's go on the automation side, because I'm a firm believer you can automate a lot of things in your business. At the same time, I will caveat that automating everything is just not good, because there's no personalization. There's no you can still personalize and automate, but there's less personalization, and you need to be hands-on on some of this stuff, right? So if we're looking at automation, and I'm going to focus on the Lofty side. I love these smart campaigns, the smart plans. So they're basically campaigns to stay on top of mind. And you can allocate these campaigns to whatever group of people, whatever group of buyers or sellers, investors, however you want to talk to a certain type of client, right? Past clients. Like, for example, I have a nurturing campaign where every 21 days I just send out an email with valuable information. Like, I'm sending one out that's going to say, hey, now's a great time to winterize and make sure your sprinklers are taken care of. Here's a few fall things you need to do to get your house ready for the winter. You like, and then maybe a slight at the bottom, like, hey, I would love your referrals, because if you don't ask for business, you don't get business. So things like that you can automate and staying on top of mind, because then when they reach out, they're like, hey, thank you for that, or whatever the case may be. You're like, hey, no, not a problem. Oh, and then now is your chance to engage them even further and ask for business directly as well. So the first thing is really the email side of things, right? Because we have different touch points. A lot of people like emails, a lot of people like texts, a lot of people like calls, whatever the case may be. So I think you should bring them all together and do a little bit of everything. And what I mean by that is, like, in the smart campaign, let me see if I will share this again. So this is a maybe I'm a little ahead of myself. Hold on, let me save this, because we're going to touch on the birthday stuff. Cannot be empty. Oh, sorry. Oh my gosh. All right, excuse me, I can't even talk. Long-term nurture. All right. So with Lofty, we have smart plans, and I apologize if it's not your CRM, but you kind of get the gist, right? So you're going to identify the settings, what campaign, what group, A, B, C, D, hot, cold, nurture, however you identify your waterfall of clients, right? And then we're going to do is hit a trigger. So they meet specified conditions. So mine is just the pipeline is nurturing, and then go into action. So for me, I like to, I started that. I think this one lasts it's like uber long. It's like almost 2 years or something, a year and a half or something like that. Right. But it's every 21, 30 days or so. So it's not frequent. I haven't had anybody actually like, hey, don't send me these anymore, because they're not like, hey, 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 they're not bugging people as much. But you can see is like, hey, the email, you want to tailor content for whatever the stage is for them. You also want to personalize for maximum impact. Um, Something that you can add as maybe being specific about a smart plan is a weekly newsletter. So I do a weekly newsletter on a different platform called Constant Contact, and I'm able to have my group of people in there. It's called a segment, and I just send that to them weekly. Basically, I give them market update. I give them things to do in the Springs, Denver, Pueblo areas, a military section, and then that's it, right? It's a little long now, so I think shorter is better for people. But that's something you can do for a smart plan like this, right? You can also do monthly newsletters for a neighborhood, specifically for your area. And farming your neighborhood, I think, is the second most fruitful business you can have or that you can lean into, right? So you can do home tips, local events, things like that, right? So you want to be strategic in your timing, because you want to balance frequency to avoid anyone feeling overwhelmed, but staying on top of mind. So value is super key. And something that I'm going to be adding here soon is videos. So when my client goes under contract, they're going to get an email, say, hey, congratulations, here's the next steps, earnest money inspection. And then there's going to be a video that kind of does the same thing as the email, but now I can actually engage them, personalize with them via video. And we can do that via text as well. So on the text message side, you can see here on the second one, right? It's a follow-up text to that email. So I love to put the text message associated or in parallel with the email, so that you can remind them, hey, I sent you an email. Let me know if you have any questions, right? Because some people don't check their emails. Like, I'm OCD about my emails. I will, if it says 10 on the email thing, I'm like, what emails do I need to go delete, right? And some people are like the opposite. And that, I don't know how you guys survive or live, but good luck. Farron, what type of person are you? Actually, that's a good question. I don't know that about you.
I've got too many emails to count.
So hold on. Let me see if I can show you guys. Probably not a good time now because, now is not a good time. Okay. My business one is clear, but my personal one has 97. And just because I'm looking at it right now, I'm like, oh crap, that's a lot. I need to go back and clear that. Right. To each their own. So, yeah, along that, one other thing that I think a lot of people don't realize they can do, let me scroll here and see if I can find it. It is called Sky Slope. So Sky Slope is a ringless voicemail drop, and I have it in here somewhere, right? Because I don't want to do it too frequently. Basically, what it does is their phone doesn't ring; they just get a voicemail, and you can customize the voicemail. And now they have a function with AI that you can hashtag client's name, and it'll say it. It'll put it in your words. Hey, so and so, and then your message, which is crazy. So it can actually be personalized ringless voicemail. So they actually think you called, but it's a voicemail that I talk on my phone. I say, hey, Brandon with Epic Realty, or however you want to do your thing, right? Hey, it's Brandon. Just wanted to touch base with you, see how things are going. Let me know if you have any questions, rates drop, whatever you're doing, right? However you want to touch base on that. You can do a ton of different voicemail campaigns as well.
Is it the same sky slope as the transaction management?
Not Sky Slope. I'm so sorry. Hold on. Sly Broadcast. As soon as I said it out
Gotcha.
loud, I was like, wait a minute. Um,
And then we also have a question
let's see.
from
Yeah, what's
Don.
up?
Don asks, is the campaign dynamic?
And when you mean dynamic, Meaning, if they reach out, does it do anything? Can you elaborate on that? Is
I
it, you
believe
says
by dynamic,
Don?
what he's checking on is the customizability of it and like tailoring it to individuals.
Once the campaign is set up, if you want to change content of the emails, does it reset? Oh, yes. No. No, it is dynamic. Yes. So if someone's halfway through a smart plan and you change something that's before it, obviously they won't see it. But if it's in the future, then it'll update that and it won't restart them. So yes, it is dynamic. Yeah. And you can have with these campaigns, you can do conditional questions. So I know we talked about this on the last webinar, but basically you can say, hey, we have an open house. And the last thing you want to do is step on anybody's toes when it comes to, you're trying to attract clients, right? But you don't want to steal anything from anybody. And you don't want to do it. Like if they have an agent, you can say, have an agent. It automatically tells your system because there's an open house form, or you could put it in yourself. And you can say, if yes, you hit to send this email. If no, send this email. So now you can approach them differently depending on how they responded or how it was input, because you can modify it as well, which is super cool. So not only dynamic, but customizable and conditional as well. So yeah, great question. All right. So we talked about emails, we talked about text messages, we talked about ringless voicemails. What are some fair? Is there anything else we think of staying top of mind on the automation side? So so the next topic is we're going to be focusing on like birthdays, special occasion, things like that. But any other thoughts on that?
No, I like the email aspect, but the only risk there is potentially getting flagged for spam. So that's my main concern with emails, because I do like to send out market updates and such, things that are actually useful and beneficial. But I always worry about it going to the spam folder. So I think
Yep.
pairing up an email campaign with a ringless voicemail option is definitely a good way to go about it. At least just
Yeah.
letting them know it's like, hey, I sent you an email about some, recent updates in the market. Just wanted to see if it came into your inbox. And I think that one can be less frequent because the first one you send will actually force them to look up your email, which will then prevent future emails from going into spam.
Yep. No, that's a good point. And then also the systems that you use. So like with Lofty, they have some they're able to identify and say, hey, this is not coming from a nefarious location. So we're able to say, hey, within our email system, it'll go to them. Sometimes it still goes to spam. And then with my Gmail, mine always go to spam because I think with my signature block has too much HTML, so it has too much code in it. So I think that throws it off sometimes. So it's a great point. You definitely want to make sure like just sending an email is not enough because they might not even see it. You're like, why aren't they responding? Well, maybe they didn't even see it, right? Because I've had other agents, I've had people that I worked with frequently, and they're like, yeah, it went to the spam again. I'm like, I have no idea what's going on, right? So something I got to fix, but a way to get around that is adding different touch points. So speaking of touch points, excuse me, when we're looking at, we get to the transaction being closed, right? And you're like, hey, thank you. It was great working with you. And, you kind of part ways, right? Typically it's a lull for most agents and their clients, past clients, it's a lull. What I suggest doing, because you've already got their birthday, you've already got spouse's information. And what I need to do maybe is add like anniversary, like important dates and timelines or things that are important to them. So that way I can go back and add that to my CRM and automate these birthday campaigns or potential birthday campaigns. Let me back out of this one. But so you want to create memorable campaigns. So we talked about birthdays, we talked about anniversaries, home anniversaries, like, hey, it's been a year since you moved into your home. Do you have any updates on like, have you made any, done any remodel? Like, what have you done? I just love to check in and see how things are going, right? Little things like that go a long way. And doing text and video text and video email, I think that's going to be like the standard moving forward. So I'm implementing more video into my automation. Uh, but so, for example, we were going to look at the Lofty birthday one, right? So let me see.
I actually have a pro tip there as well. So according to the stats, less than 10% of agents actually stay in contact with their clients after a closing, like after they've already helped the buyer purchase a home.
Mhm.
So you on the contract itself, you already have the email, the phone number, etc. There is no representation that's there anymore after that transaction has closed. And if you were the listing agent, you already know the property, you already know the area. So I feel like you're in a prime position to add them to a campaign for a future transaction. Just nurture them until they're ready to sell. Now, basically, that buyer's agent just brought you your future buyer or seller already, and because I feel like a lot of agents are very transactional and not relational, so because of that, you're in a prime position to capitalize on that as well, and add a whole other aspect to your business, like another funnel of leads and clients.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think a lot of agents don't intend to be transactional. Like most of them don't intend to be transactional, but let's be honest. We've got a lot of shit going on, and like when we close a deal and then you get paid, you're like, all right, I got to pay the bills, and then you start moving, you're like, oh crap, I need another to be able to help another client out. Like how do you know, so a lot of agents, I feel like they're kind of behind the cog when it comes to taking care of their clients. So that's why I think it's really important that you take the time initially to set up how you're going to follow up with your clients. Write it down, however you do so. Create, we talked about the different ways you can do that, but put a system in place so that way you don't have, and a lot of this, once it's created, you don't have to mess with it a lot, right? You just have to make sure, okay, like gifts are going out, cool, all right, that's great. All right, they responded to that, let me go and follow up with things like that. So you get more time back if you take the time initially to set these things up, and then you're be able to take care of your clients, and then you look like a rock star. So like, how the hell do they do this and everything else that they're doing, whether you do 5 deals a year or 2500, whatever the case is. I think if you have a system in place, like it, you get more time back. So make sure you take the time to do that. Um, so like when we're talking about the smart plan for birthdays, right? So you can have a smart plan for anything. You can be a home anniversary. It could be whatever, right? So this example is a birthday. So this plan name is called Happy Birthday. The trigger is they meet specific conditions, which I got to update mine again because it keeps going back to something. So um, they get a text at 8:24 in the morning on their birthday. Happy birthday, wishing you the best today, Brandon. That's it. That's all. That's it, right? Then uh, the postcard, and you got to make sure that you figure it out, because if it arrives 4 to 6 days later, so you got to make sure you're okay with it arriving later. If not, then you maybe need to update your smart plan to where the postcard goes out 5 days prior to that date. You know what I mean? So that it shows up hopefully on their birthday. But then this goes directly to them, right? And obviously, this one doesn't have a design. This is for example, but you can do it within Lofty, and you can pay it through Lofty, which is great. But if you don't have Lofty, you have another CRM, a really cool integration tool that uses a lot of different systems. It's called Zapier, right? It's a Zap. You set up a Zap. You can integrate it with Lofty. You can integrate with Go High Level, whatever CRM, Follow Up Bus, whatever you're using, right? And then for us at Epic, we have a free membership, the thanks.io, which is a postcard campaign. So I can set up my postcard directly from thanks.io. I zap it. Hey, on this date, it goes out to thanks.io, something that I've already created, happy birthday card, and it mails it directly to them, automated based on the date and the client and what I want based on that campaign. So then you don't even think about it. These things go out, right? Obviously, you need to stay on top of it. Like you check, what I would suggest is having your calendar up in the morning, like, hey, is anybody's birthdays today? Cool. All that stuff went out. It did what it was supposed to do. But you don't have to take the time to type it. You don't have to take the time to write the email or obviously you can do a handwritten postcard because that goes a lot further. But when you're dealing with a lot of clients, when you're dealing with a lot of people, it's really hard to spread yourself thin. So if you're going to do personalized birthday cards, you can do them in advance, right? You're like, hey, I'm going to go and say, happy birthday, Brandon, happy birthday, Brandon. Or if you want to add a little note too, you could do that in advance and then you can do it on your own, right? Obviously, that's a great way to do it. But we're talking about automating things that you get more time back for your business. Um, so the other thing is when you're looking at these campaigns is also thinking about Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Valentine's Day, right? So there's so many different opportunities to have touches with your clients, wishing them a wonderful Christmas or Hanukkah, whatever they celebrate, and that's important to get it right, right? You don't want to disrespect anybody, their preferred religion or whatever it may be, and so doing that allows you to create conversations because I have my so I was in the military for 12 years. So I've traveled all over the US and in the world. And I know people all over, right? So for me, it's really hard. I don't use them as like, hey, you want to buy a house in Colorado Springs? Like, no, I'm not doing that's not my approach with them. I just want to say, hey, like you're awesome and today's a holiday, I just want to say thank you or whatever the case may be, right? So I have a pool of all my friends and family all over the world that are not specific to the Springs, and then I have specific messages that go out to them because I know that's a similar group of people, close friends and family. And holidays, certain events, things like that, I go and reach out to them, and I get so many conversations every time I do that, that like I'll get like 90 notifications of people following up, and then I'll start these conversations. I'll give them a call. So it's really cool to like, oh, we haven't talked in a while, right? So now we're able to get on the phone and follow up because just because I sent them a happy birthday or a happy Halloween or whatever the case may be, right? So all right, so now let's move into like how do you give your clients gifts? So I know a lot of agents, and I used to go to the closing table with a gift. And I've always had mixed feelings on not on showing like when you show up without anything. I always felt a little weird about it because there's this thing that agents do. They show up with a gift at closing, right? That's what they're supposed to do, right? So I try to move away from that because the closing table, every time I've given a gift at the closing table, it has kind of gone like, oh, thanks, cool. But we have bigger things going on right now. We're signing documents. You're getting a house. Like, here's your gift. Here's your key, right? So I tend to focus on them during that day. I make sure they're taken care of, everything goes smoothly. And I let them know, like, hey, I make sure I have your, if they're buying a house, obviously I have their address. If they're selling, say, hey, I want to make sure I have your follow-on address because I would love to send you a little thank you. It's been great working with you. Just kind of leave it at that. So they're not like, man, he didn't do anything for me. Some people expect that, and that's just the way it is. So I kind of throw that out there. And then I try to automate a lot of the touches because the worst, man, it's so hard to like, all right, so-and-so, I'm going to go email, I'm going to go mail them this, so-and-so, I'm going to mail them this. Or the person that does show up to closing with a gift, you're like, fuck, what do I get them? I don't know. Like, you like whiskey? Like, and another going back to the forms, asking them what they like. Now you can personalize your gifts. You don't have to re-ask them again. Like, damn, I haven't really been doing a lot of talking with you, so I want to make sure that I understand what you really like. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the vibe you give off when you start asking them at the table or a day prior, because they're picking up what you're putting down. Like, oh, my agent's going to go get me something. He wasn't paying attention for the last month and a half, so now he's going to ask me. So that's my perspective, anyways. I don't want to project my thoughts on you guys, but the idea is you can automate a lot of these gifts. So personalized gifts will always beat out anything that's automated anytime, right? So the options, though, people are like, hey, what do I give my clients? You got some options. So for me, I use Client Giant, which is really cool. It's affordable. You have two different options for quarterly gifting. So every quarter, they get a gift. The only bad thing about that is that if you close on like last week and now I have a gift not going out for a month and a half until the next quarter, then that kind of sucks, right? Because obviously you want to be like, hey, I was thinking about you. I've been planning this and everything like that. But it's okay because those quarterly gifts, when you buy them either monthly or annually, it goes for a year. So they get 4 gifts, which is really, really cool. And let's see, top of mind is what I do. And you have 2 programs for them. And I'm not affiliated with them by any means. This is what I use. It's the LeCoq method, right? So if you don't like it, use something else, whatever. Right. So top of mind is only $99 a year. That's 4 gifts. They're actually pretty cool gifts. They're non-gender, they're non-aged biased or anything like that. So they are pretty generic, right? Like I think, here we go. Let's see gift examples. Like they have a card set of um I don't even know about very on the artistic side, whatever. But the last one was a dry bag, so the picture's not working. Then they had a candle refill kit, a salt cellar kit. Paradise in the summer they get tea and things like that. So I think it's cool. It's enough. I had tons of people reach back out to me like, I've been meaning to buy dryer balls for a year and they don't buy them, right? And I'm like, oh, cool. I really appreciate. It's cool that you appreciate that, right? It doesn't have to be crazy flamboyant, and you know what I mean. Like it's the thought most of the time that counts. And I don't know how many clients have gotten to me. It's like, hey, Brandon, I can't believe you sent into this. It's the 4th gift we got. Like, you're awesome, right? If obviously, and I've had people without even asking, like, if I know anyone looking to buy or sell, I'm sending them to you, right? And it might not even be the whole like you took care of them during the transaction because that is long gone. They moved in, they had a lot, they got their utility set up, they get their moving, unboxing, family, school. So they tend to forget about that stuff. That's why follow up is key because now you're top of mind, right? So that's one example. It's consistent. Another one that I found that I haven't used yet is called Goody. So you don't need an address, right? I think the way that it works, and I haven't used it, so I apologize. But basically, they do branded gifts. They do different types of similar gifts, and then when you send them, it goes via email or phone number. So they claim them, and then they put their information in. So if you're like, oh crap, I don't remember their address or where they're going, and I don't want to ask them, bam, you've got an option. You got their email and phone number unless they changed it, right? Then let's look at something that I'm doing for all my, I'd say semi luxury clients because I'm working with a rep that has gotten pretty good deals on Cutco knives. And hold that thought. I'm going to show you mine actually. Go ahead, Farron. You can talk.
I do have a question for you on those knives as well. Also, guys, a rule of thumb for me when it comes to gifting, you can't go wrong with an air fryer. Like I'm telling you, those things are so useful. I use mine at least twice a day. And even if somebody gave me a second, I would love it because sometimes I need 2 air fryers for the same meal. You
Dude,
know,
those
to
Yeah, I've got
they're
the
always
Ninja one
useful.
that has 2
Yeah.
compartments. We use
Oh,
that
nice.
every single day. I love my
Yes.
air fryer. So I
So
agree
even
with
if they
that.
have an air fryer, like dude, go for it. If they use it, their first already, they would already know how to use the second one. And even if they don't, they can re-gift it, and it's so
Yeah,
useful. Everybody needs to
exactly.
have at least one air fryer. That's my
Yep.
very biased gift
Yeah,
idea.
that's good. I like that. So the Cutco thing is really cool because one, Cutco, I don't know if you know this, but and I'm not trying, I don't have any affiliations with anybody. So just throw that out there, right? So maybe I should actually, but I don't. And Cutco is a forever warranty. So I can give this to my son's son and it breaks, they'll replace it. No questions asked, which that alone is pretty cool. But the quality is really great. And then look at that branding. So and I don't know, I forget what it says up top.
I do have a question on the branding as well when you get a moment afterwards.
So you can brand these however you want. They say to put your name, your phone number, and your logo on there, and it says like this is a spreader. It says thanks for spreading the word, right? If they use this, which they will, because I use this baby all the time, they're gonna remember you, right? And that's the key. That's the key. What? Go ahead, Farron. Sorry.
Nice. So my question is, when you put the branding on the actual cutlery itself, are
Yep.
they likely to pull it out on like a dinner or with friends or something of that sort? Is there a little bit? more understated place that, again, I tend to be
Mhm.
very you know
Analytical.
a little bit analytical, and also I would say more understated in my approach to a lot of things. So for example, in the holder, for example, if I can just put my logo on the holder, that way they see it at the end of the day as well. And then they're not going to feel shy about pulling out the set of knives that I gifted them in front of friends or whatever, because they're going to be like, oh, it's, like
Because it's
somebody.
branded.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've had mixed feelings about the branded piece as well because I'm like, if I get something, typically I don't want it branded unless it's like part of a product or a company that I'm like super behind and that I do or use every day, right? So I totally understand that, but it is this would be probably one of the nicer knives or things that they will have in their kitchen, and that's not. Obviously, it depends on your clientele because some clients they have some really, really nice cutlery, right? They might not use it, but I think that's for you to judge. I don't give this to every single client. I make a decision. I say, would this person appreciate this gift? Would they potentially utilize it? Yes or no. And then I kind of make my decision off of that. But I think branding over anything doesn't matter if they're shy about it, they don't pull it out, whatever. The key is they know it's there. So if they're shy about it and they know it's there, you're already top of mind. So you've already like that's the key, right? And it's not for them to be able to pull out in front of their friends, and be like, look at my amazing agent. Like nobody does that, right? But if it's a nice piece of cutlery, they're just going to use it and be on with their day. So it's not really for their friends and family if they don't want to use it with them because it has branding. So I
What I was
that's kind
thinking,
of
like, is
my
like,
thought. Yeah.
if Cutco or another knife company, for example, has like a nice wooden box that all those knives would go in, or for if you're gifting them a set of, four steak knives or whatever,
Right.
those four steak knives goes in a nice wooden box with your logo. That way,
Right.
they gotta interact with that with your logo and stay on top of mind, and then still not be shy about having to use knives in front of friends and family.
Yep. No,
So
I agree. There's so many different ways to approach it. And that's why I bought 10 of these sets for different clients. And, I might give it to one, not another. And Cutco rep was like, you should give it to everybody. I'm like, yeah, of course you would say that. They're $200 a pop. Right. So you got to use your best judgment, what you're comfortable. And this also goes back to being genuine to yourself and your brand. So if it aligns with you and your brand, like do you boo boo, right? So at the end of the day, but on the Cutco piece, like they are pretty expensive, right? They're not cheap, but you can get good deals with them. And obviously, if you're trying to give back to your clients, like having something of this value is pretty cool. So another one that I want to touch on is called Snappy. It is a gifting platform. It doesn't cost anything per year, but it's also you only pay for the gifts, right? So you can have branded swag sent. You can have like personalized messages and things like that as well. You can automate this through Zapier as well. So this can link to whatever CRM, and you can do that. So I was just showing you the pricing chart because people are like, okay, like you're gonna sell me on like it doesn't cost anything to actually be part of that one. So there's tons of different things out there. You know what I like, what I'm doing now. So I actually this morning I reached out to a local coffee business owner. Right, they have an online presence. They're veteran-owned business. I reached out to him. I said, hey, I would love to do a co-branded coffee bag for my clients and get your support a local business, get your name out there. Some of their proceeds go to a good charity. So like there's a lot of wins in there. So really maybe go find out a local place that you can add to your like gifting and things like that. And obviously that's not going to be automated, but now it's personalized, it's localized. There's some benefits to that as well. And that kind of aligns with the other piece of like personalization. Like you can do an Amazon business list. So you could send a link to your client in the home questionnaire, like, hey, I would love for you to just fill out what are your preferences on this, your Amazon list or whatever. I haven't done that, so I don't know if it works well like that. So don't be like, oh, that's a terrible idea. It might be a terrible idea. But you can utilize Amazon to ship things. You can ship gift baskets. It's super easy. Prime, you get like overnight and stuff like that, 2-day deliveries. So it makes it more efficient. You can go on and just do that, right? And then, or you, as you're working with a client, you go on and create the Amazon gift list. This is part of your checklist of things to do. And you're like, they talked about this. I'm going to go add that. So now you put it on, you forget about it. It's there. So now when you go back to it, you're like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm going to send them this instead of the automated stuff. Right. And then last but not least, and actually that's all example wise I have. So the other piece is in-person pop buys, right? Pop buys are super popular. They've been going on forever. Something I'm going to start to implement. I have not done them yet because I haven't been organized enough to be able to like do them. And I have clients all over Colorado. So I was trying to figure out a way to like make it more efficient. So I'm probably going to do this for Thanksgiving for pies. So I'm going to do a pop pie with their stuff and then drop by if they want a pie, but it'll be like a email that goes out. They say, yeah, I would love one. And then I tell them like the day they can come get it, or I go drop it off or something like that. But pop buys is often cheaper. You can do local stuff. It's not automated, of course, right? But it's personalized. You can be branded. And you can create your own gift basket or something and go buy. You see these, IG posts about these agents. They have all these bags on the table. They're filling the bags up, right? I think that's a great idea. It shows you care. You took the time to do it. So it's a really good option for you for follow up. But it's not automated. So you need to have that in your time blocking, right? Of like, all right, first Tuesday of every month, I do a pop by bag creation or whatever the case may be. I'm doing an event next month. I'm going to create swag bags or whatever the case may be, right? So that kind of leads us into, actually, before I do that, does anybody have any other questions about automated gifting company? Any good suggestions? Make sure you put them in the comments below, because I would love some other suggestions. But Farron, what do you do for client follow-up for that?
I usually just personally try to take them out to dinner once a year, and then occasionally, like I would say about every 6 months, I would check in with them on the phone. So I do have a question as well. So when it comes to gifting and such, is it mostly going to be for past clients, correct? Um, do you do anything for like potential leads, hot leads? Do you have like, something that you send them, for example, like a Starbucks gift card or something automated?
I don't personally, but I do think that's a potentially a good idea. And why I say potential for me is that if you're sending a $5 Starbucks gift card to every lead you get, right, that starts to be pretty expensive. Um, I think there has to be some sort of commitment, some sort of like, hey, like if I'm just giving you a Starbucks card, it's pretty obvious what I'm doing, right? I'm trying to, buy your time or buy your information or whatever the case may be, or that's maybe my perception of it. So I don't have that, but I could see that with potential referral partners or maybe other vendors. That I think that's a great idea for vendors. You like a local, like, and maybe not before you interact. Because if I get a roofer that goes out and I've already sent them a gift card and they go out and they're absolutely terrible, now I'm like, man, why did I spend money on this person? Right? Because they're terrible. So I don't think unless you have any good ideas, I don't know if I would ever do anything in advance unless it's like this buyer client we're working with. We've been talking for a while. We've seen a few homes off and on over the months. Like, yeah, I could see that. Like their birthday comes up or holiday, I'm like, hey, make sure you go out and grab a coffee on me. Like I could see that absolutely. But that one would be hard to automate. You'd have to be on top of your game as far as like making reminders, like, okay, this person's birthday, we haven't closed the deal yet, but hey, it's his birthday coming. I want to make sure I take care of them. So, and that goes back to the getting the information early so that you could put it into your system and you can start automating, because that's actually pretty cool. Is that you are working with a buyer, their birthday comes in, you haven't closed on a home yet or anything like that, and they get a card from you, a text from you, happy birthday. They're like, what? Like, they haven't made any money off me. Like, I know a lot of clients think like they always go back to the monetary piece, but for me and for most agents that I like to surround myself with, they're very relationship biased. So it's not just a transaction, right? And I think actions go a long ways with that. So yeah, that's a good idea. Just depends how you implement it, I think. All right, so we've got two more sections here before we cut it off. I know we're creeping up on an hour. So the client appreciation events, building community, I think those are great ways to be able um, to really engage your past clients, your community, potential future clients, obviously, vendors, and things like that. You can kind of bring them all together. So, what I'm doing here, I got to figure out the details, but basically, I'm doing a uncork your dream. I forget what I titled it, Uncork Your Dreams in 2025. So, I have wine that I'm going to have, and then we're going to do a vision board session. So, this isn't necessarily specific to clients because I'm going to do this with agents, but I'm going to open it up to really anyone and everyone. Like, a lot of people like to drink wine, and a lot of people like to do art design stuff, and like, hey, visionary, let's build a vision board, right? So having events to do that, and you can really offset your costs to any and every event you do by bringing in vendors, having shared roles and relationship. Like, hey, I'm going to put your name on the flyer, I'm going to put your name out there. You can introduce yourself. Obviously it has to be legal, within the RESPA Act, right? But there's great ways to do that with vendors and have events, charity drives, holiday gatherings, Santa's workshops. We talked about the free photo thing for all entrepreneurs, right? Headshots. That's something I want to do, but make sure you're consistent with your brand, your voice. Your messaging has to be consistent across the board when you're doing that. So anything on the so I will give a shout out, my real estate coach Jason Smith. He's out of Florida, and he's the one that really said, hey Brandon, you need to be doing more community events. You need to really lean into your your farm per se, like your area, like your sphere of influence and your farm are your two major areas you need to lean into, because over time you can survive any real estate industry time frame, right? In 2008, if you had a bunch of past clients, they may be buying and selling still, right? So if you lean into that, you're going to continue to have business. So give a shout out to him, because that's something I was always like, oh yeah, I'll do it. But now I'm really, okay, I need to put it on the calendar. I've met with an insurance agent lately. They're going to host a top golf session for like anybody and everybody. Like, hey, come out and just have top golf on us. Like, nobody wants to go to a home buying seminar unless they're like actually pursuing a home, and then their agent's probably already like giving them information. But like, I've tried to do 2 home buying seminars, and people are like, nobody RSVP'd. I had to cancel everything. So that was a little embarrassing for me. I was like, damn, that didn't work out as planned. But I thought about it. I was like, who wants to go to a home buying seminar? Like, even if I give you lunch, like, it doesn't matter, right? Um, so doing something that's fun, interactive, of value, right? That's key. So, all right, last section. All right, before we wrap it up and open up for any additional questions, is review requests. So, Farron, do you follow up with every single client with a review request? I'm gonna put you on the spot. I'm sorry if you don't.
100%. I
Yes,
actually
I knew you did. See, I knew
I
it. I knew
also, yep.
it.
I also try to get it before the closing, because after the closing, they're gonna be so
Yep.
busy with the moving. They're just processing what happened, because a home is the biggest purchase of someone's life.
Yep.
So I feel like reviewing the agent, I feel like will be, and I'm okay with them putting it on the bottom of the priority list. But while we are still in contact, while we're still in lockstep, I usually, in a lull period of the transaction towards the end, when, right before we get the clear to close from the lender, most
Yep.
likely, that's when I'm usually like, hey, whenever you get a moment, here's a direct link for the, submit a review page.
Yep.
Not even my Google business page. I just send them directly within the Google business page, submit a review, you know, that specific link to them. That way it's like all they got to do is tap, select the number of stars, and type in the review. That's it. I make it super easy. I'm like, hey, whenever you get a moment, please submit a review. So I
Yep.
try to do that before the closing, because after the closing, you don't want to keep on bombarding them with review requests. Because
Yep.
that's one, inconsiderate, two, you're the least priority on their mind at that point.
Yep.
So
And they're already done. They're like, all right, well, whatever. I love that you do it before, and that's something I'm gonna start implementing as well. So let's back up a little bit. So the importance of online reviews, right? So you got to build your social proof through positive client reviews, right? And if you're an agent that like, hey, I just got in industry yesterday, like you're not going to have any client reviews, but you're probably old enough to have worked a job, you've had a boss, you have family members. Family members are a little, they can go either way, right? But you have friends or family that you've worked with in a professional way. Like, don't be shy to ask for those reviews. So it's funny because when I first got into the real estate, I asked one of my coworkers, I was like, hey, would you mind doing a review for me? And I'll do one for you. Like, I love the way you do business, and like, that like I can vouch for that. So he gives me a review, but he was like, Brandon helped me buy a house. I'm like, dude, I never helped you buy a house. Like obviously that's at the bottom of the list, right? And I, try to change it or remove it, but like be sincere when you're asking for those and tell them exactly why. You're like, hey, I would love as a former coworker, I would love to have a review. So that's one thing that a lot of newer agents have to do, right? But you can start building that now. And I'd say if you do anything, obviously when you're a new agent, you're writing down everybody you know, right? As you're generating your list of potential clients and leads, right? Second thing is make sure you get your reviews started like day one. So what's something that someone's going to do? Like, oh, I heard about this agent in the Springs. His name's Brandon. They're going to go Google you, right? And if the first thing that pops up is like 0 reviews, no social media, nothing, you're like, what is this guy or gal doing, right? Um, so you want to make sure that your online presence is looked at. So you need to audit your online presence, and I'd say you need to go to every platform that you utilize. And if you don't utilize, social media, you absolutely should, at a minimum, a little bit here and there, right? You don't have to do it consistently. Excuse me. But be consistent, have your bio, your photo. And here's a little like random tip is when you save your headshot, save it with keywords, because when then you upload it to your social media, your LinkedIn, your TikTok, your IG, your Facebook, your Reddit, your Facebook groups, whatever it is, right now, it's going to be indexed with all those keywords because that's how it's saved as the title. So if you upload a picture and it's called like download 3, right? Make sure you rename that with the keywords of the clients that you intend to go after, right? So doing that, being consistent across the board will help you with your online presence. But crafting an effective review template and request is super key. So I do an email and I do a text follow up as well. Something that I was doing before, which I changed, and it touches on how Farron does his. He said he only sends a super simple text with just the link and boom. That is key. Don't make this elaborate thing. Here's my 5 review places, because I had mine. I had Google reviews, Zillow, and Realtor.com, I think, because I was like, oh, those are the 3 places I need to like be present. So now I I was like, hey, here's my Google review link. And then PS, if you want to do more, here's my other stuff, right? So I have an email for that I utilize that goes out. And here's the timing that from other people that have told me, it's like you get the clear to close or 3 days prior, send that initial one out, that email. Because I send an email out that states, hey, we're closing. Here's what you need to bring to closing. If you haven't talked, we've reviewed your settlement statement, like some last minute information. So it's documented. So they're like, oh, you never told me I had to bring my ID. Like, yeah, I did. It's in the email. Make sure you document stuff. But you also put in, hey, want to ask you for that review. And then if they haven't responded to that 1 week after, 1 month after, and then 45 days after. And at that point, you might want to let it go. I've had one client that they're like, yeah, I'll do it. And I kept on asking and asking and asking. And I don't know why, but for me, it felt pretty petty that like, hey, all the things, it was a difficult transaction. We got them through, and I don't know if it was personal or what that they just wouldn't do the review, but at some point you just gotta be like, you know what, it's okay, like moving on. So that was a good learning lesson for me. Is like, hey, don't just bombard them with review requests. Like if they're gonna do it, they're gonna do it, right? Short and sweet, and then focus on one review link. And then when they do a review for you, and hopefully it's on your Google business profile, because I think that's what SEO pops up first, is respond to them. Do you know what I mean? So you need to, even if it's negative, you need to respond to them. Because if it's negative, people will like, "Ooh, why is it negative?" And then, "Ooh, they didn't respond. They didn't," you know what I mean? So you can go back and be like, "Hey, I appreciate your feedback. Like, I didn't realize this was an issue." So now the client, future clients might see both sides of the story and realize, oh, this guy's just kind of nitpicking, or gals nitpicking, right? But that is very key when you're doing your review request, and having a template. You can have the templates in Lofty. Actually, if you want me to show you, I can do that real quick. I'll show you mine. And actually just changed mine. So this one's actually really lengthy, because I just told you guys not to make it lengthy. And then mine's a little different now. But basically, I have the review. I removed all this crap up here, most of this, right? And just put the link and then a PS and then thank you. Like, I've changed it. So I've learned my lesson to not have anything lengthy, because nobody wants that. And then I do a follow-up text same time that goes out and says, hey, it was nice working with you. I really appreciate it. If you have the time, if you don't mind sending me, a positive or a 5-star review, put the words in their mouth. Like, because the last thing you want to do is get a 1-star, right? You're like, never mind, just kidding, I don't want that review. So, but yeah, so you can have templates in Lofty, and obviously other CRMs and things like that. Going back to automation, right? So if I click on a client and I say closed, because we closed that day, now it's going to wait a week, and then that review questionnaire and text will go out. And then also, I have it automated, so now that I can have reminders for the follow-up gifting, and I'm going to get more intricate in terms of exactly what it'll do, but you can do a lot of different things when it comes to the automation side for follow-up. So I know that was way over an hour, but that's the gist of it. You need to stay true to yourself, be consistent, and follow up with your clients. Like, treat them like family, because I'm sure you've gotten really close with some of your clients. So, yep, that's it for me. What do you got, Farron? Any
I
parting
do have
parting words?
a class request potentially for
Mhm.
maybe within the next couple of weeks when you have a moment to tie. So this is a phenomenal class on how not to lose already converted clients. Like, they already became a client. You've worked
Mhm.
super hard to convert them over to a client. So don't lose it. And these are some of the systems and tools that we can use towards it. Wanted to see if you're also able to do a class connecting the Smart Plan class that you did 2 weeks ago
Yep.
to brand new leads. I'm sorry, my dog just who's next to me burped just now. He burps like a old man.
That's hilarious. Uh,
So
yeah.
yeah, so if it's possible to tie in a few of the things that we learned today to a few of the things we learned 2 weeks ago from your Smart Plan class, to see how we can convert a lot of leads into clients, um, as well, so that we
So,
cover the whole spectrum of
yep.
going from a lead to a client to like a forever client.
Gotcha. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think Yeah, absolutely. We can do that. And I think one already have a nurturing, or not a nurturing, a new lead smart plan that every day it reaches out for, I think, 11 days straight. Right. So I forget I forget what brokerage they do this, something of like, it's got a, like for me, it has a negative connotation of where like something like you call them nonstop for however many days. Right. And so anyways, I took a little bit of that and I'm like, okay, I backed off a little bit because I'm not doing the actual phone calls every single time, which I probably should on new leads every day until they're like, hey, kick rocks, or like put me on a drip or whatever it is, right? But yeah, I would love to do that, and to get people excited for that. Like, imagine your smart plans you have the new lead coming. Oh, sorry, over here, right? You have your new lead, and then you have I'm backwards in the screen. That's weird. So you have your new lead, and then after that smart plan falls or continues all the way through, you can make it to where if they don't reach out, now it puts them in the hot or the cold, right? Hot first, and then because you reach out more frequently when they're hot. And then if they don't respond or do anything at that point, then it puts them in a warm pipeline. So now it's less frequent. So now you're now putting them into another pipeline that is cold, right? And it's even less frequent. And then you put them into the nurture, or however you want to title them, into even less frequent pipeline. So I do love that. That's a great idea, because that way you're just constantly like having touches with them, but less and less and less frequent, but consistently throughout. So yeah, we can absolutely do that. And I think that would be a super short one. So we'd be like, hey, 20 minutes or less. And maybe we actually do some topics of like, hey, we got 10 minutes to talk about this and we're going to cut it off, because nobody wants to sit here for an hour and 11 minutes and listen to me and you talk about random stuff. So maybe they do. Hey, we got 2 listeners still. So thank you
Hey,
guys for coming. Appreciate it. Make sure you like, subscribe. Um, any thoughts on the entire thing? If you have any resources that you'd like that I talked about, post them in the comments on the channel and everything like that. And then if you have any other ideas for topics, like Farron just brought up one, put them in there as well, and we'll get them scheduled for you guys. So hopefully we can get another one maybe next week, and then keep going on a weekly. So I like it. So
awesome.
all right, brother.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. We'll talk soon, and see you guys.